Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne Sportsnet production, available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
This episode of the Steve Austin Show is brought to you free in part by our friends at TrueCar and Geico. You'll hear about them later in the podcast, but for now, enjoy the show.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am currently out on vacation, recharging batteries, but just because I'm recharging the batteries, we still got business to take care of. In the meantime, we'll be playing some of the most requested Steve Austin Show classics that have been locked away in the archives. I got a great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Welcome to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. It's producer Sean here, bringing you episode number 93. Original air date, February 25th, 2014, featuring one of the finest pro wrestlers and overall performers to grace the sport of pro wrestling. Speaking of none other than William Regal. William Regal joining Steve Austin on this classic episode today. They talk about William getting into pro wrestling in the United Kingdom, talk a little bit about World of Sport, talk about William Regal having a WWF tryout in the early 1990s. I was not aware of that. Apparently it took place at Royal Albert Hall. So maybe we'll see that on the network at some point. But also him getting into WCW, some of his favorite matches. They also talk a little about the WWE Network as it was about to launch. I think it already launched by the time this episode had aired, but it was about to launch when they recorded it, so they do talk about it in that tense. I can't remember a time without the WWE Network. It is a weird thought in my head. This day in Steve Austin history, January 15th. Steve had a busy day today. Starting off in 1990, at the Mid-South Coliseum for a USWA show. I believe this was a taping of some sort. But Steve Austin went to a time limit draw with the dirty white boy, Tony Anthony, better known as TL Hopper, or if you want to get more granular, Uncle Cletus, former manager of the Godwins. Also on the same show, primetime Brian Lee defeated Stunning Steve Austin on the same USWA card. If you've heard Steve talk a lot about on the podcast before, he often references the time when he was riding in a car with Tom Pritchard, and Tom asked both him and Brian Lee what's so stunning about Steve and what's so primetime about Brian. Check this out. On an episode of Monday Night Raw in 2001 in Milwaukee, Stone Cold Steve Austin teamed with the APA, Farouk and Bradshaw to defeat Christian, Edge, and Kurt Angle in a six-man tag main event. So there's your day in Steve Austin history for January 15th. Coming up after the break, we'll hear from Steve Austin and William Regal on another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show.
Every car comes with its share of stories. That ding in your bumper when you nervously picked up a first date, or the mileage you saved by riding your bike all summer. While you can't put a price tag on your stories, now with TrueCar, you can at least find out what your car is worth when it comes time to sell or trade it in. Just go to TrueCar, simply enter your license plate number and watch how your car's details pop up. Then just answer a few questions. Navigation, moonroof, high mileage. Now you'll know how much it's going to cost you so you can plan ahead. Once you're finished, you'll get a true cash offer sent in minutes, which you can take to a local certified dealer to cash out or trade in. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offer not available in all areas.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
What do you like to be called?
I don't care.
All right.
Steve's fine.
Bollocks.
Bollocks is good, yeah.
Hey, let's go back to the time when I met you at Center Stage TV. You just come in. I was like, man, William Regal or whatever they're calling you. You came in as William Regal?
No, I came in as Steve Regal.
Yeah. So that was the Lord thing when you got with Dundee.
That was later
right.
on, yes.
But I remember you came in. I can't remember who you was working with, and I watched you work. Like you were selling your ass off. I came up and I stuck my hand out. Hey, man, Steve Austin, man, nice to meet you. It was badass work. I just love the way you sold. And you had been working at that point probably 10 years?
Nearly 10 years, yeah.
So what got the bug up your ass? I mean, you're working your ass off in England. You come up the hard way, kind of learning the carnies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, incredible technician, and you said, hey, I'm picking up my bags. I'm going to the United States of America.
Well,
what spurred that decision?
It started off in England, and I didn't think I'd go any further. I was quite happy working on a fairground. Honestly, I thought, because I had
and it had been fun, but it had been tough.
It was, but I didn't feel tough at the time because I was 16 playing at being wrestlers, living in Wonderland. And it was Wonderland to me. I was, like, biggest amusement park in Britain. I'm wrestling on it and just living in that scene when it was still alive, Yeah. So I went down a lot in the 90s and stuff, but in the 80s it was still buzzing. There's shows on everywhere. There's clubs. It was just a great place to be. And I had no athletic ability. I wanted desperately to be a wrestler, but I wasn't any good. I was lucky to get a break.
No, but hear that.
But I had no athletic ability. I was no good at it. Luckily, I got a break to get in it. Got in it, and then like my view sort of changed. I was quite happy working there. Then I think, well, I'm slowly getting a bit better. Perhaps I can work on the bigger circuits in England, and I worked on that. And then when I got to about 18, I started looking. Probably a bit, about 18. I started seeing Dave Taylor and Tony Sinclair, and Pete Roberts was my big idol.
Right.
And they were never in England much. You'd see them occasionally on shows. And they always seemed to have a suntan, and they were always just coming back from somewhere sounding exotic to me. And they were like this small group of British heavyweight wrestlers that were world renowned for being really technically sound. And they'd fly them in to make everybody look good and look like they could wrestle, and do these long, drawn out wrestling matches that people can't do anymore, like between 8 or 15 5-minute round wrestling matches and put people in and out of things and all that. And so I thought, I'd like to be, that just sounded like the best job in the world, because they weren't stars anywhere. They were but they made a lot of money doing a lot of money for England standards, and they were always away. And I thought, that's what I want to do now. So then I started learning that kind of stuff. And luckily for me, because I was tall, I started to get heavier, because it was always a bit of the heavyweights did that.
Right.
And a lot of the other fellas didn't. Like the big stars in England were all smaller fellas, really.
Right.
It was the way it was.
When I first started watching the world of sports stuff, the 5-minute rounds was kind of first for me because I grew up all in American style wrestling, usually run straight through, time. And many times under 6-minute, whatever. And so you go to the 5-minute rounds, I'm like, oh, man, this kind of threw me for a loop. But then I really started studying it. And each 5-minute round, it's like a mini match.
Yes.
Because you've got built-in psychology in 5-minute spurts.
Yes.
And how one guy comes, and maybe someone catches a fall or he's hurt the other guy. What's a minute break between rounds?
Yes.
And so it's very intriguing once you get into it and watch, hey man, these guys are working their ass off. They're doing the great stuff in the ring, and a lot of the technical stuff because I was watching the lighter weight guys go, but just within the framework of each 5-minute period, and they know where they're going with it, depending on how many rounds they make and do they go the distance. But what happens in each little setup, dude? Yeah. That's a lot of damn planning and doing that for I don't know how many weeks in a row. Whether you're doing the 4-minute rounds or in England doing the 5-minute rounds. But man, if you're working every single night, you're damn sure getting your chops in.
Yes,
like crazy.
A lot of reps.
It will really make you. If you have the ability to acclimate and be talented, if you can't learn there, you can't learn anywhere. But it's tough.
Yeah. Well, it didn't suit me. It was just...
Well, yeah, because you were used to it.
So from 20 till 24, I was literally wrestling in England maybe 2 months of the year. And I was living there, but I was off all the time. The last year I was there, 92, I was in England for 2 months. I was away for 9 months.
What'd your dad think when you hauled off and took off? Was he behind you? You think he's going to fall on your face? Wanted you to get a regular job?
He wanted me to take over his construction business and be a bricklayer, you know, and I just knew from a little kid.
Did you break his heart, or he was cool and supported you?
No, he broke his heart, but he's always supported me.
Oh yeah,
he's a great fella, and he's always. But I still think to this day, he still thinks I'm going to go back and start up his business again.
Yeah.
So I got traveling, and I was just non-stop traveling, and I was doing all this stuff, and then 1991, out of the blue, I get a FedEx come to my house from the WWF. I didn't even know what a FedEx van was or a FedEx. I'm sat in my house and a van pulls up outside. I had a few things in my house that shouldn't have been in there. Let's put it that way. Because it was all, just the life and the people I hung around with who were always buying and selling things and, and not bad things, just
video
recorders and stuff, and that was part of just to get through life. That's what I did. And I thought it was the SWAT team come to get me. So I'm panicking. I see a van pull up outside, with writing on that I had no clue what it was. I thought, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
It's off now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm
caught up to me.
I'm sticking stuff under the couch and everything, like just trying to ram stuff up in the attic. And there's a knock. Oh, here we go. And it was just left this letter on this FedEx from the WWF. Can you come to the Royal Albert Hall?
So you opened it.
Yeah, right. Well, I looked on the back and it said WWF. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So I get this, can you come to the Royal Albert Hall? We'd like to look at you. Where's this come from? This is like a punch in the face, right?
Yeah.
A good punch in the face.
Yeah.
So I go down there and I get down there and I have a match at the Royal Albert Hall. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It was something they put on, it was like a special show for England, and they did a battle royal, and Davy Boy won the battle royal and that. And then they asked me to go to Wembley the next night, and they talked to me there, and they said, look, and that was in the days when everybody had a character, and everybody said, look, we like you. It could be several years till we get back in touch, but we will keep in touch, but we like you, and we'll find the right thing for you. Because I was only, this might have been 21, 22 maybe.
Yeah.
I said, great. A couple of weeks later, I get a call. WCW was on like late night TV in England. Can you come and do work for us? This was November of 91. Still to this day, don't know how I got that. I think it was Scott Hall, because I knew Scott from 1989 in Germany. I spent a couple of months with him there. I don't know who suggested me. I still don't know.
How did he do over in England? I mean, over in Germany.
Germany, fantastic.
Yeah. He was always a good worker.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
He was Texas Scott Hall.
He wore a big cowboy hat and big mustache.
People loved him. And
good-looking dude.
And he fit right in there. Yeah. Because he knew exactly how to do his stuff and to fit in with everybody. So, I don't know. I've asked him and he's never admitted, he's never said one way or the other. But anyway, so I go, and basically, Giant Haystacks was there, and they wanted to look at him. And I wrestled with Giant Haystacks all the time, hundreds of times, right? So they wanted me to wrestle him, and then they said, can you stay for the rest of the week because somebody's hurt or something? I still never found out what. So I'm okay, yeah, I'll stay with you. So we did a couple of days in London, and then we did a show in Sheffield, and then we did a show in Dublin. And in that week, I wrestled Terry Taylor, Jimmy.
That had been fun. You guys had
incredible, yeah. And we'd never, because what winds me up a lot when people say, "Oh, well, I've got a different style." I never had any problems working with any of them fellas that from that era of group
that knew how to work.
Exactly.
Right.
It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's people who've never learnt the job properly.
Yeah.
If I turn your arm one way, it goes that way, and if you turn, I go that way, and if you hit me, I sell it that way. Right. That's. And so there's anybody who gets that there's a point when, well, it has a difference. It's just people who don't know what they're doing, really. Right. And they make excuses for their lack of abilities, right? So I had a great week. I worked with Michael Hayes, Terry Garvin, Terry Taylor, Giant Haystacks the one day, and then Oz. I worked with Kevin when he was still Oz.
Yeah, how was that?
Oh, double red rotten.
Yeah.
No, it was okay, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just he was still trying to find himself at that point, wasn't he? He wasn't sure, and that was a terrible gimmick he was given. But I remember being in Dublin. So they said at the end of the week, "Well, we like you. We want you to come." So I'm thinking, well, whoever gets hold of me first, right? Because I'd seen the writing on the wall by then. You saw American shows were on TV in England now. Once you've seen that, you don't want to go back to watching, a little ring with a 100-watt light bulb above it.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. It's fun for a while. And all of a sudden you get a taste of
They get to see that production and everything. And I wanted to come to America, I always wanted to come to America. Everybody does, right? Well, most people do. So now it's looking like a natural chance for me to come. So I go about my business the next year, 92. I am absolutely book solid. I worked the first 2 months in England every single night. It was on fire. The TV World of Sport had been taken off TV in 1988, and it went through a few ups and downs.
Why did it get taken off TV?
There was a lot of it to do with the promotion and not making any new stars. That was one thing, but that's not everything. Basically, a fella called Greg Dyke, who now is the head of the BBC, came to ITV, and he decided that wrestling and you know, professional darts is a big thing. You know, and snooker, things like that were too working class. He was an Oxford educated or Cambridge educated fella. He wanted to upgrade everything and thought that the working classes, which is most of Britain that watch TV, because there's such a big class system, he thought he knew better than they did. Right? So first thing he did was move wrestling. In a 2-year spell, he moved wrestling from 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which it was always on, regular spot, 4 o'clock on a Saturday. They used to be saying in England, everything stopped at 4 o'clock. That's the working classes.
That's so serious about their wrestling.
Working classes watch wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? Moved it from 4 o'clock to midday in 1986. Everybody, not everybody, but most factories, everything else, everything worked half day on a Saturday in that period of time till 12:30. That was a work week in England, 5.5 days a week. Within a week of them moving it from 4 o'clock till 12, the figures dropped in half just for the time spot. There was a lot of other things that went in with the, you know, not making any new stars and you know, all kinds of stuff, production values and whatever else. Yeah. But within 2 years of watching the figures drop off, he's got perfect excuse to just take it off, right?
Right.
When it was took off, it was still getting 4-point-something million.
Yeah, Jesus.
It was still getting, and people would die for that now, right? 4-point-something million. You know, main shows on a Saturday night don't get that. And that was when they took it off.
So then what happened to the wrestling scene there in England if they didn't have a TV?
It went underground for a while. A lot of people had to get jobs, you know. Brian Dixon, who was what we used to call the opposition promoter, he sort of came into his own then. Dale Martins, who ran the TV, sort of went away to a big degree. Brian Dixon kept running shows and he had all the best talent that was there and just kept running and running. Right. And everything was posters and word of mouth anyway. Right. Regular buildings, through the winter. You did most places you did every month or every 2 weeks. And kept it going. And so it fluctuated a bit. But by 92, 91, 92, everything was on fire again. No TV and all the buildings were doing incredibly well. Now they're only small buildings, right? You know, between 3 and 5,000 people. But I was in the beginning of 92, it was Dave Taylor against Fit Finlay chasing for the British Championship, chasing each other on one tour. Mm-hmm. Ryan had 2 shows a night. Right. And then the other show was Kendo Nagasaki in a tag match with whoever he was and whoever else was fitting in there. So you'd be going between the two. I was at that time, there was remember Evad Sullivan, Dave Sullivan? Yeah. Right, well, he was over, he'd been in Germany and he came to England and I was on a few shows with him. So we were just sort of moving around between the 2 tours and just busy all the time. Or some nights I'd be on in the Nagasaki tags, me and whoever, and Pat Roach and against them too, and whoever. Like, always working. And then March the 1st of that year, I went to India for a month, and then I went to Germany for about 10 days, and I went to South Africa, then I went to Egypt. And luckily, I hadn't got any work booked for Germany. Was very, very hard to get in. It was a very close, clicky. Clicky. Everybody wanted the spot there. Now I'd had bits of it here, there, and everywhere. You know, I've got it booked up in England and stuff, but I hadn't got a lot else. I don't know. I had plenty of work coming up in September. I was going to go all kinds of places. I forget, but I get a call from Otto Vance. Can you start in Graz next week? Or in 3 days, I think, at the start of his tour for the rest of the year. Yeah, well, Steve Wright, Alex Wright's dad, he was fixing an aerial on his roof and fell off and broke his leg or done something.
He was a wrestler.
Yeah,
okay.
He was like
so Alex, second generation.
Yeah, so he was a big star, you know. Yeah. So he gets in, can you come? Yeah. So I ended up staying there through the rest of the year. September, Rip Rogers is on the tour. Yeah. Rip Rogers came in to my trailer one day and said, are you still in touch with WCW? This is 92 September. I said, well, you know, the old way, I don't know if this was like when you were starting, but the way we used to get booked everywhere, wherever you went, this was one of them tricks, wherever you went, you just send a postcard from Durban, South Africa. Hello, this is Steve Regal. Just telling you I'm working here. Send it to all the promoters you knew, because it made you sound like you were in demand,
Right.
which you were.
Yeah.
Well, he said, you still in touch with WCW? I said, and this is funny because WWE, I had a letter off them every 2 months, came to my house in Blackpool, set with a printed letter. We've got you on file whenever there's something comes. I was still getting those letters a year after I came to America.
Who was sending those letters?
Somebody in the office. I don't know.
But they was maintaining touch.
Yes.
Okay.
Never heard anything off WCW because you know how unorganised that was, right?
Yeah.
So, but Rip Rogers said to me, have you got nice handwriting? And I went, well, yeah, it's the only one thing I ever did at school. You know, I got nothing else, but I can write. My knuckles tell the tales of that because nuns used to batter us over the hands with like a cane force you to write.
So you get pretty handwriting.
That's the only thing I've got, right, is good handwriting. So he said, Bill Watts has just took over WCW. He said, and I've worked for him, and he said he'd like you, but he's very particular about certain things. He said, because about every couple of months I would send out like a printed resume, you know, like and whatever, you know, just another 8, because you never sent videos in them days. It was 8x10s, just a picture of you.
Yeah,
you know.
that was all.
Yeah, it was it, 8x10, and your resume, and I've worked here, there, you know, and you can call this fella for a reference, or this fella. That was the way it was. So he said, this may sound strange, but if I dictate it to you, can you write it? He said, because he likes to hear certain words. I went, yeah, of course I can, yeah. So there's all these sayings like, I train diligently and this, and I've, you know, this and that.
Yeah.
So I wrote this letter, I sent it, and used to have to, it was about an 1/8 of a mile walk from my caravan to the phone box to call home every day. You know? Yeah. So obviously that was the way it was, a handful of coins and call back to the wife. I go and call. About 5 days later, I call home one day. She said, can you call this number straight away? I sent this letter off that Ripper told me about. Can you call this number? Bill Watts wants to talk to you straight away. So I get straight away put through from his secretary to him. I'm like in the phone box. Honestly, my hands was going in and out like a fiddler's elbow trying to put these coins in this thing like that. Couldn't get enough coins in, like just eating them up, calling them.
Don't hang up on me now.
Calling from America, right. Big pocket full of change. And he said, I'd like you to come and work for me. Can you come like now? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I said, I'm here till Christmas. He went silent for a while. And he went, have you got a contract? I said, no, but I've given me word that I'm going to be here till Christmas. And he went, and another long silence. I thought, well, that's me screwed, but, you know, that's the way I am. That's the way I do business. He went, you've definitely got the job now. Most people would have just quit to come here, he said, and I like that in somebody. He said that you didn't quit, you know, and you give your word. He said, that's sealed the deal. When can you, he said, I'll get you here. He said, when you've finished there, I said, well, 2 days before Christmas. He said, well, I'll get you here for the 1st of January.
That's awesome.
Then it was just a matter of my wife at home having to find that much, because I was in Germany, finding that much stuff to get visas and stuff, all these programs, everything that I'd ever done for the last 10 years. She had to find proof of that I was a wrestler, you know, to get these. It's easy, a lot easier for them to get visas now. And she was sending stuff. I landed on the 23rd of January, and then the first day I met you was the 25th of January, 1993.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
The big game is around the corner.
Every single team that is suiting up for this weekend, putting the helmet on, putting the cleats on, has a 3-game win streak left in them right now.
Check out The Rich Eisen Show on PodcastOne Sportsnet as the legendary sportscaster analyzes the plays and predicts what'll happen on February 3rd.
Almost a quarter century of covering NFL playoffs. I cannot recall a more wide-open field.
Download The Rich Eisen Show every weekday on PodcastOne Sportsnet or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Talking with Lord Stephen Regal, William Regal, whatever I'm calling
King
you.
of the Jabroni tribe.
King of the Jabroni tribe.
You used to sing that song all the time to me. What was that all about?
I don't know.
Lord Stephen Regal, King of the Jabroni tribe. I don't know. You had all kinds of verses for it and everything. You actually put thought into it.
Different space at a different time.
Yeah.
We was on a bunch of different levels back then. We're both on the straight and narrow these days. Hey, man, what was your favorite town to work in? Anywhere in the United States?
I used to like that place we used to do in Columbia, South Carolina. You know,
why'd you like that?
You know, there's like the stage, and that. I watched you and Ricky wrestle like 45 minutes one night in there. I don't know. It was weird that. It was just that little place, but there was just an atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It was just one of those places that I always, you know, you do these great big arenas, but after a while they'll become, you know, obviously Chicago and the Garden places. But there's just the intimacy about that place was something magic about it.
I thought I enjoyed back in the day when we were doing TV in Atlanta, because you know we just make those towns. I mean, it was Dothan, Alabama, it was Columbus, Georgia, it was Macon, Georgia. It was what were those couple of towns in South Carolina that were kind of close by?
Yeah,
we do those. Anderson,
Greenville and Anderson.
Yeah, Greenville and Anderson. But everything was so local, and those were kind of. And I remember those days. The buildings were usually half to 3/4 full.
Yeah,
and those were television taping. So, but you know, houses were where they were. The business wasn't the greatest period of we've seen.
That was the best time. I think my favorite time period of my career was that point in time when there was me and you were traveling and we were on all those shows, what they called the Beat Crew. But it was
the Beat Crew was rocking.
It was rocking. We had the best working team, and we were in all. And you go to like Florida, and we'd base ourselves in Orlando, and we'd do all those little Davie, Florida, all these little towns for like 10 days, and we'd come back, do TV in Atlanta, then we'd do the Carolinas for a week or two, and then we'd do the Georgia show. But those ones when we were away and me and you were doing them drives, and you just go and you'd work hard, and you'd come out and you'd be sweating, and it was just magic.
It was, and the business was a lot more simple back then, it seemed. I mean, it's a giant machine.
Do your thing, right?
And
do your
get
stuff.
A shower and get down the road.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day when we was filming TVs in Orlando, Florida, you and me used to stay out in the hotel at Kissimmee, and there was that British pub, Rover's Return, where you and me would always go, man, we'd get loaded up on Guinness, throw darts all night long, go back to the hotel and do it all again, and that was some great times. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite match, or just a list of a couple of matches that are your favorite of all time?
That I've had?
No, just any match that you would like to watch. That you've liked to watch.
My favorite match of all time was the match that's on, you can watch it on YouTube, is Marty Jones against Mark Rocco from 1978. Marty's wearing red tights. That's my favorite match. Then those 89 Flair Steamboat matches.
Yeah,
I got those on tape, and I used to do my squats to watching them.
Yeah,
that 1 hour match, I used to put that on, and I used to just stand and do squats watching it, or step ups.
Yeah,
weird, but I used to do that, and I thought, well, if I can do this, I can keep up with them.
Right,
and I'd do it for a full hour with them. But that series of matches they had then were fantastic. There's that many. My favourite live match that I ever saw was in South Africa, which was again Marty Jones against Gamma Singh from Calgary.
Really?
Gamma was incredible. If you watch him from the Stampede stuff, he worked as a villain. When he was a wrestling babyface, we got to Durban. It's an outside show. They were on main event. I'd been on early. About 5. It was always a walk-up business there. About 5 o'clock. It started torrential raining.
Uh-oh.
By the time we get to the show at 7, there's usually there'd be probably 4, 5, 6,000 there. It's a tennis stadium. There's probably 1,000 die-hard fans. They go on last in torrential rain, with all the fans moved up into a stand, a covered stand. So there's nobody sat around ringside at all, just empty, except for me. I went and sat in the rain, pouring down, and they did 12 5-minute rounds straight through with no falls. And it was like that scene in that film Paradise Alley, at the end when they're like slipping on the water and and they just work. And I'm totally in awe to this day of what I witnessed that day. I've never seen it on. Maybe it's on a film somewhere, because there was one just turned up on YouTube recently. I had no idea it existed. My first ever time in Durban in 1989. There's a full match of me and there when I was 20. So somebody may have filmed that match, but it was in the rain.
Right.
I don't know if I'd want to watch it because it might not hold up. to my memories, and that would ruin it for me. What else have I seen? I've seen that. Well, I mean,
what did you think going back to what was it, WrestleMania 3, the Savage versus Steamboat match?
This is a weird one for me,
and I know why.
Yeah, I loved it until I talked to Ricky about it.
Right. Okay. Enough said. Because I know.
Yeah. And it really put me off. Like,
yeah.
I still love it.
If you just watch it now for what it is, and I mean, it's for wrestling fan standards, it's one of the greatest matches of all time.
Incredible.
But when we're talking about on the inside, what we're talking about, your stay here in the States, or when you was over in England, your favorite world champion body of work here in America. Because you get different guys. You get guys that are funk guys. You get guys that are race guys. You get guys that are flair guys. You guys get a Michaels guys or a Bret Hart. Where are you at on that?
I'd have to say Ric Flair, I think. I just because...
Okay, now what was it about Ric Flair? Because he's my favorite pro wrestler of all time. And you're going to hear many people, depending on what camp they're in, and again, wrestling is subjective. And people are going to say, if you've seen one Ric Flair match, you've seen them all. Well, that's like saying if you've heard one... Boston song or Led Zeppelin song or Metallica song, you've heard them all, because everybody, every band plays within their structure of what they do. Every wrestler wrestles within the framework of what they do. So why would you say Ric Flair in your estimation?
That was I didn't see American wrestling until 2 years after I was already wrestling. Right. Couldn't get any tapes.
Right.
People forget that, I didn't own a video until... I was just leaving. Well, my parents had one just as I was leaving home.
Yeah.
We had black and white TVs when I was a kid, So I got some tapes, and he was one of the first stuff I got was the NWA from Charlotte. And so I've seen him go out there with all these people, and just something about him, just the way he did his stuff, and just the charisma and everything about it, and just carrying himself like a pro. And then I saw all the best matches, because that's the only ones I was getting. I wasn't seeing everything.
Yeah,
I was seeing the Steamboat matches and the Bruiser Brody matches and people stuff that was like, oh my God, this fella just keeps going, and that was a lot of it as well. It's just the conditioning, and to be able to, I can go a long time, but at my pace.
Right.
His pace was. Same with you. Your pace is 20 notches above anything I've ever done, because that's the way you were. And I'd watch you in these long matches with Rocky and with H and that, and I'd be watching. I'd keep going,
most of the time I was blowed up, but I kept going.
No, but you kept going.
But the thing about Flair was, what I liked what he did was, sometimes you need to take you down in a match and just by feeling it or listening or his instincts, he'd know when things that needed to be put in motion. Time to speed things up. Time to shut somebody down. Time to get a little heat. A little bit of hope. Something. His timing was just so good, and he did it within just you watched his body. He looked like a pro. He was so relaxed. He adjusted trunks a little bit, put his hair back, maybe a woo or whatever, but just the way he executed his business. And when it got time to get nasty, he was mean. He was kind of that, that cowardly heel. And I mean, so he wasn't a tough guy.
And I liked his.
But when it came time to get mean, he got mean.
What I liked was when I used to watch the actual. Another thing that drew me to him was that the way he did certain things, and I knew he'd had some kind of a British influence, and then I found out later Billy Robinson, because the way he put a wrist lock on was the proper way to put a wrist lock on, instead of that old Chinese burn kind of thing that people do. I don't still get that, what I mean? But he put a proper wrist lock on. Little things that he did correctly. I used to love watching Dory Funk Jr.
I loved to watch Dory too.
So I just liked the grinding and just the work stuff.
At first, when I started watching Dory Jr. stuff, and this was in a different frame of mind back in the early 90s. I mean, I was like, this guy's kind of boring. But as I got educated to what is great wrestling, I was like, oh, Dory Funk Jr. is one of the best. And I loved watching his stuff and still do. I mean, all of his stuff looked fantastic and totally credible.
I have an there's certain ways and I've put myself in different times when I'm watching wrestling.
Yes.
I'll watch any kind of wrestling and enjoy it if there's effort.
Right.
I don't care if it's right or wrong. What people say there's no right and wrong psychology. It's just different. You go to different countries, they do things that you work for different companies, they do things a different way. But as long as there's effort.
Right.
So sometimes I'm looking at it from that.
Right.
If I'm in a mood to look at it from a point of view of, I see a lot of people. My thing was, and this is, I never, because I wasn't very good at this to start with, and I never bought into the whole coming from a carnival and a show atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't. I never wanted that term about being a good worker.
Right.
This was the way I based my work on. I used to talk to loads of people, and I'm sure you do, who don't like wrestling, right?
Right.
And when they used to say, when people say to me, I still do, yeah, but when them wrestlers do that, it looks. That was all I ever wanted to do was, I'm going to make sure my stuff doesn't look like that.
Right.
That was my whole outset, mindset on how to make my wrestling.
Interesting.
And it was like, if you say that looks phony when they do that, I'm going to make sure I work on mine until it doesn't. I'm going to make sure that whether you like me or not, when you watch it, it looks as believable as you can do. Or if in doing comedy, you understand that I'm doing comedy and it's funny.
Right.
Or if I'm everything is that much. If I talk, you say that all you ever hear from wrestlers is right. That's not what I'm going to do.
Right.
Or if I do it, you're going to know that there's a reason for it. And there's a lot of thought out stuff, you know what I mean, that I've always thought like that as far as getting in. I haven't got any, I've got no athletic ability. I can go my pace and I can do my stuff and I do it. And I've always think, avoid anything you can't do and do the things you can. So I can't do that, but I can do this.
Right.
You want believable looking wrestling? And I think I'm as good as anybody at it. That's just what I do. Grinding away and storytelling stuff. You want comedy? I can do comedy.
Right.
But it's just watching other people and, God, they're good at that. I marvel at people. I sit there marveling at people going, God, I would never think to do that in a million years.
Right.
I watched Sean. I watched when he, especially when he came back in, more so when he came back in 2000. And just that look and that look in his eyes. And I'm all about believing. You know, and I say this job comes down to three things. Whatever, it's got nothing to do. It starts in your brain, it goes into your heart, and it comes out on your face. And if one of them things is not right, some people buy into it, but a majority, to really capture the masses, you've got to truly believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And you've got to show it on your face.
Right.
And if it's not showing on your face and through your eyes, and people go, if you can see into you never trust anybody that they won't look at you in the eyes. And as wrestlers, we seem to forget that. Everything comes through the eyes. We attract from that. It's that belief in yourself.
And you hit it right on the head. I agree with everything you're saying about those three things. Sometimes these days, you know, when you can pick a green guy up who's trying to do those things, but the belief is not there, and you see through them because they're overacting. And so I totally get with what you're saying, but some people, when they don't really believe it, but they're trying to emulate that, it's not the same. There's a big difference. And to me, that just comes with, you know, learning the trade. We're going to wrap this thing up. I know you got to get down the road. I'm going to download this thing right now as soon as we get through talking. I lost the last damn computer chip. Oh, we're here in Los Angeles, California. You're in my house. You're down in Los Angeles for another 2 days. There's a big cold thing going through Atlanta. You can't get back to the ATL. What are you going to do for the rest of your time here? You know, we were here for Monday Night Raw. I went down to Staples Center. You and I talked with a bunch of guys. Saw Road Dogg, Jesse James, Badass, Billy Gunn. A lot of guys had fun hanging out. Got a chance to finally talk to Bray Wyatt, good kid.
Yes.
Starting to buy into the gimmick. Yeah. He's got his head screwed on straight. Yep. And what's the guy in the orange jumpsuit?
Eric Rowan.
Yeah, Eric. I met him yesterday. I didn't get a chance to meet Luke Harper. You had some words with him. Yeah. He's going to turn up the volume. It was a good show. Bray Wyatt caught a good win off that tag match. Rey Mysterio didn't hurt Ray none. Vicious looking gimmick out of nowhere. Yep. Clean in the middle. Wyatt's are speeding up the process. Man, the show's changed a little bit, man. I tell you what, you go down there, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, man. I went to see Kevin Dunn in the production truck, and there's monitors. I mean, more monitors than there ever was. There was a pre-show going on. I mean, it's like I had to leave. There was so much going on, it was blowing my mind. I marvel. That's another thing. I sit around and I go, how do these people do this? I'm a part of it, and I'm like, how do you just watch Kevin walk out of his truck for 2 minutes, and I'm thinking, I look at him and I'm trying to, how does he do this? How does he manage to do it? How brilliant is he that he can do all this? And everybody I'm looking at, the production people, I'm going,
how do they do all this?
Dude, I mean, all the wires that go running everywhere. Oh. And, I used to always go talk to Kevin Dunn every time I'd go to Monday Night Raw. He's a friend of mine. But just the way it keeps growing, and they're feeding the app, all the different stuff going on. Before we go, they're going to launch WWE Network.
Yes.
I went down for the presentation in Las Vegas. It was badass to know that they've got 100,000 hours of original content, all this other stuff. Legends House is finally going to play. The reality show they filmed a couple of years ago and couldn't find a home for. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with those guys underneath one roof. What are your thoughts about the launch of WWE Network and what it means to have access to all of this programming and content?
It's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking at it from a fan perspective.
Oh, I am too, because I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm a fan, and it's like there's all this, but we probably take for granted what we've been a part of. But there's all this stuff that most of the stuff I've been a part of. Now, I don't want to watch my stuff. I just want to be able to type something in and have immediate access. Because, it's going to blow YouTube out the water. Because it's YouTube with slick sophistication and presentation. And I'm really looking forward. There's such a lot of stuff that I didn't see. Right. Because I couldn't get anything in England.
Oh, you're going to have a field day.
I didn't see a lot of WWE stuff because I was always working.
Yeah.
It was only on Sky, and it didn't come on until the late 80s. Well, I was wrestling, and I certainly didn't have Sky, There's a lot of stuff, NWA stuff, all those territories that they own. That's what interests me, and that's where, if you're smart, you'll be learning from. If you stayed in a territory for a long time, you had to be good and do different stuff because you had to keep going back to the same places. And that's what I'm fascinated in.
Right.
What did these fellas do that stayed around in these territories for a long time? So I'll be picking, why did people buy into his act?
Yeah.
And I'm really, my brain's going overtime now about thinking that's when I'll start, because whether I use it or not, I'll give it to somebody else to use, or try and use that, or try and use that. Well, that idea works, and there's such a big lot of new stuff that I can look about, and just going back and watching stuff that we were a part of, and you forget that, I don't, like I say, I don't want to watch any of my wrestling stuff.
No, me
I was
neither.
never really that happy with it. I've never been happy with it.
Oh, I can watch my stuff and I cringe.
Exactly. But I'll go back and watch all the comedy stuff I've done because I enjoyed all that, what I mean? Because that much of that stuff, that's my stuff, because I pull off that, and there's a bit of Tommy Cooper and there's a bit of this, and so but just to watch everybody's stuff and stuff that I never thought about before, you just get a thought in your head. I'm doing it every day. I get a thought and I'm Googling things, about bands or wrestlers and that. I can just watch that now, and that's going to be fantastic.
That's in fact $9.99 a month, and this isn't no plug, but I mean $9.99 a month to get all the pay-per-views, including WrestleMania, and you're still going to get your Monday Night Raw, you're going to get your SmackDown on TV. I mean, you got access to all this stuff. So anyway, it's going to be a badass thing, and so many guys have before us have paid dues. Yes. We did our thing, and now the current generation's doing their thing, and the people into the future. But Steve, to be good in this business, because you did it, you got to live it, eat it, breathe it, sleep it.
Michael Hayes says this isn't a job, it's a lifestyle. It's true, isn't it?
It is.
And everything suffers because of it, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. You should know what you get. I was told my first day into this, you come in with nothing, you go out with nothing. Enjoy the ride.
All right, let's give big ups to our friends at Geico. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, I'm giving Sean a go-home cue, so let's wrap it up for this week. Make sure you check out PodcastOne.com and subscribe to The Steve Austin Show so you don't miss any of these classic episodes. Before I ride off in the sunset, I do want to throw out a couple of plugs. I still got a beer. It's the badass Broken Skull IPA, the finest IPA in the United States of America, and that's the bottom line. Made by El Segundo Brewing Company. You can find Broken Skull IPA at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in Cali. If you ain't in Cali, you're probably SOL. And if you're looking to get a badass pocket knife, I got two for you. Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife, Cold Steel Working Man Knife. Get them at my Amazon store. Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin, or go to the Cold Steel Knives website and check out all their badass knives. Also, one more big shout out to all of my sponsors to make this show possible. That's how I'm able to bring this show to you free twice a week. Please support them because they support us. For more info, check out the podcast description to this episode for details. Folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at Steve Austin BSR. Folks, I'll be back soon, but until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.